Get ready to celebrate God's call to go. Here's your weekly dose of heartwarming encouragement for the missionary in all of us. Welcome to Missions Change My Life. Now here's your host, Pastor Kevin.
Good morning. This is Pastor Kevin. It is October 27th, 2020. I'm so excited to have Rebecca on the show today. We also have our co-host Courtney with us, and she will be helping to interview Rebecca. Rebecca's been one of the founding members. Her and her husband were founding members of the board for Global Hope India. You're going to hear about their story and history in just a moment. They reside in Apex, North Carolina. They don't have any children, but they do have 2 cats. Rebecca holds a bachelor's from the University of Virginia, a master's from the University of Bath, and a PhD from the North Carolina State University. She and her husband Chris attend Hope Community Church. Rebecca is employed with the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, where she is a manager and a performance manager. She loves to play soccer. She's very athletic, runs multiple 5K, 10K, marathon, half marathons every year. And just wait until you hear us break down her 2 truths and a lie. Will you please join me? Put your hands together. Big round of applause for Rebecca. Welcome to Missions Change My Life.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Glad I finally have the opportunity to share a little bit about how missions has changed my life.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have a lot of details, and Courtney's ready to dive in, but we're going to play 2 truths and a lie real quick. So we're going to ask you for 2 truths and a lie, and you're going to try to stump me and Courtney.
Okay. So let's see. 2 truths and a lie, and obviously I can't give them in that order because then you'll know exactly what they are. So I gotta make certain that I weave.
I knew you'd be a pro at this.
Now they might be in that order just to trick us.
Yeah. It might be the first one, might be the second one, might be the third one.
A, B, or C.
Who knows? All right, so let's see. A couple of facts about me.
Mm-hmm.
The first fact is I've been to 6 of the 7 continents.
Wow.
Second fact about me is I have carried the Olympic torch. And the third fact about me is I come from a large family of 8 kids.
Wow. She has played this a lot.
I know.
She's a pro. I'm going to call it on the Olympic torch. I would love for you to have had that honor, but that would be an incredible opportunity. Courtney, what do you think? I'm going to say that that's the lie.
Yeah, I don't want to vote on the same one, but that one seems just the most incredible.
I know she travels a lot.
Yeah.
She is from a big family. I don't know the number of siblings. It could be 7. She could be stumping us there.
Right.
I feel like we're playing the Masked Singer all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm going to lock in my answer with the Olympic torch.
Okay, me too. Lock it in.
All right.
Both of them, yeah.
Which one was
so
the
what
lie?
is the answer?
Yeah.
So the answer is that there's a little truth to every lie, right? There's a lie to every truth.
Yeah.
So the lie is I come from a family of 7, not 8 siblings.
I spoke it. I just didn't guess it.
You did. I was smiling.
So real quick, you carried the Olympic torch?
I did. So back in 1996, when the Olympics came to the U.S., I was in high school at the time, and I was a track runner. And when the Olympic torch came through North Carolina, I was nominated by my school to be one of the escorts with the torch. So I got to run and torch for a brief bit while it came through North Carolina on its way across the U.S. down to Atlanta. It's probably one of the coolest experiences I had as a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you literally get to hold it, or did you just get to touch it as something else held it?
I carried it.
Wow.
So as an escort runner, I did just run alongside to make certain the torch never dropped. But I ran with 5 different torch bearers, and they'd let me carry it from time to time.
Yay. That is so cool.
Congratulations. Yeah. That is awesome.
Learn something new.
Yeah. So real quickly, the 6 of the 7 continents, which ones?
Yes.
So which one did you not?
Which is the one you haven't yet?
My guess is Antarctica.
It is Antarctica. So
Oh,
my
very
husband Chris
smart.
and I hope one day to get down to Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be so
Yeah.
incredible to look at.
And you are one of 7 siblings.
Yes,
There
sir.
you go. The number of completion.
Yep. Well, let's dive into your trips to India. Courtney, take us away.
Yeah, well, let's start out. How many times have you gone to India?
6 times. I
Wow.
have been, so of the 6 of the 7 continents, and of all the countries I've been to around the world, and granted, I lived and studied abroad, I've been to India the most.
Wow, that is saying something.
Yeah.
From the little bit I know of you and just getting to follow you, that's saying a lot. So that's awesome. So when was your first trip to India?
We took our first trip to India in March of 2011.
Okay, so coming up on 10 years. And where did you go? Or I mean, maybe you just go down the list of where you've been in India. I know we don't have time to touch on all of them as much as I would love to hear about them, but where are some of the places that you've gotten to visit?
Sure. So predominantly to Hyderabad. We did take one trip through Chennai, but all of my trips have been in and out and supporting the ministries that we have in Hyderabad.
Yeah. What was your favorite trip if you had to? I know it may be hard to just narrow it down, but was there one trip out of the many that you've been to India that really stood out to you?
You know, each trip has been unique, obviously, for its own purposes. There's always that first trip where you get the first experiences. You step off the airplane, and I tell people India hits you with the 5 full senses, right? It's everything you see, feel, touch, smell, and taste.
Yes.
And so I think the first trip, crossing that and experiencing that was really unique. And there's always that first that you can't get back. But a couple of other trips that have been very memorable include the time, I think it was our second time, when we took a couple of our really good friends, and it was a small team, just the 4 of us. And because it was a small team, we spent the week with a couple of pastors. We'd just load up in one of their vans and go from village to village. And so that was just a really unique experience to have it with a small team. But I also, just a couple of years ago, my last trip to India, went with a group of women from our church, and to go with an all-female group and a larger group, and to just have that experience. I was the only woman on the trip who'd been to India before. That really offered a unique experience for me to get to, even as my 6th trip there, relive it through the eyes of these ladies who are seeing India for the first time. So I'd say each trip has been just perfectly unique, even in visiting the same locations and the same partners.
In comparison to the many other places that you visited, is there something that stands out about India, or what really made you want to continue to go back?
Well, I've had a passion for missions. I think since I went on my first missions trip when I was 14, I have a lot of vivid memories, and since then I just felt God call me to short-term missions. And we kind of fell into India a little bit in a backwards way. I don't think we had intended to make India one of our primary location or countries where we would visit multiple times. But I mean, the story really starts back when I was 14 years old and on that first missions trip, and the subsequent ones that kind of led, in this case for me, my husband and I, to make India the place where we felt God called us.
I can definitely relate to that. Not necessarily planning to go to India or end up falling in love with India and the people there, but God truly sending you there for a reason. Is there a funny story from one of the trip that you remember?
There are always great stories when you go abroad and you try
true.
something new and different. I think for me, a story I always like to tell, I don't know if it's necessarily funny. The situation seems a bit odd and peculiar, but I find oftentimes in life and in some of these trips that I had, there are these clarifying moments of sort of these reality checks. You know, what am I doing? Why am I here? What's going on? And for me, it came on my first trip to India. And by way of background, just to package a little bit more, why India and how did we end up in India?
Yeah.
Like I said, so I had grown up in church and took my first missions trip when I was 14 years old, and that was to the Dominican Republic, and I went with my church at the time. And for the first time, as such a young child, teenager, was able to just experience and see the world through, I think, really a biblical lens, which is, in order to go and minister to people who don't look like you, who don't act like you, who don't have the same, culture or upbringing as you, you really have to do it, allowing God to just use you and work through you. And I'd say that was definitely my experience on that first trip to the Dominican Republic when I was 14 years old. Fast forward about 15 years, I was well past school, well into my career, happily married, and had done some mission work during college and back before I was married. And kind of, Chris and I got into our marriage about 5 years in, and I just felt that there was a piece they're missing. I hadn't been on a missions trip for a number of years. And Chris had a job where it was really hard for him to take a lot of time off. And whatever time he did get off, we'd try to go on vacation. And it would be a real sacrifice to take that time and just use it for a mission trip. And so I just started praying for about 3 months that, God would make a way and would open his heart and would just make a way for us to be able to take a trip overseas. And it was in India that we went to on that first trip. And it completely took God sort of opening his heart and making him realize that he did have to tithe that time and look for ways to serve God, even in the limited free time that we had. And so our first trip was to the Ukraine. Wow. And we really enjoyed working with the children and the orphanages at the Ukraine and with the ministry through the Ukraine. And I think that's what was a real turning point for Chris and I in the realization that we should be more involved in international missions work. And so that was in 2009. Well, in 2010, we started planning a vacation, and we were going to take the vacation to Australia. And we planned the week in March to go and started planning the trip. And then at our church, the opportunity popped up for an India missions trip. And it was Kevin White was leading the trip, and we'd gotten to know Kevin through the small group ministry, which we had gotten involved with because of our trip to the Ukraine.
Wow.
And the dates worked out just perfectly, like almost the same dates that we'd planned to go to Australia, right, and take our time off. But instead there was this trip to India. And so, we prayed about it and said, okay, God, we'll go to India. And we'd been a little bit curious. My parents had been to India doing mission work, and we'd gotten to know Kevin and heard a lot about the mission work there. And so we bit the bullet, and we decided, instead of taking a free, or not a free, but a great fun vacation to Australia, we would instead go to India. And part of it was, you're like, you know what, it's going to take 24 hours, right, to get to either country. So why don't we go to India and serve God over there? So fast forward to the funny story, was the trip. So here we are. We land in India, and I think we were in Hyderabad for a day, but then we're going to go out into the villages and minister to some of the churches that were out there, but it required an overnight train ride. And so within 24 hours after flying across the world, we board this train. It literally feels like the middle of the night. It's 10 o'clock at night. And if the way the train system works in India is that the trains come by and they stop just long enough for you to get on, and then you got to sort it out and sort, where you're going and where you're going to sit and all that, and just enough time to get all of our luggage on. And we had a team of about 9 people. So first the train pulls up, and you got to throw all the bags on, you got to get all the people on, and then you kind of sort it out once you get on the train, so you don't miss the stop. We traveled in luxury compared to Indian standards on this trip that we took. Although I think compared to American standards, it was, as you'll hear in the story, probably a little less par than maybe some of the train trips I've taken in Europe. So we get on the train, we get situated, and we have these bunk beds, but we had these bunk beds spread out through the sleeper car. So I end up in some bunk bed area with 4 or 5 other Indian men and me. I think Chris was somewhere nearby. So, crawl up, and it's okay. I'm exhausted. I'm like, just, give me my spot.
Right.
I'm good. I'll lay down. I'll go to sleep. It doesn't matter. And I love like riding in motion, right? And so the train's moving, and this is great, which was great until about 2 a.m. I woke up jet lagged and, had to use the bathroom, and it's pitch dark. and I'm in a train in a bunker with a bunch of Indians who are all on there with me, all sleeping and snoring and all of that. And so I get up, and feel my way around because, heaven forbid, I remember to get a flashlight with myself and, crawl over a whole bunch of people and make my way into the alley to find the bathroom. And I, open the bathroom door, and what is it but like this hole in the bathroom, you see the tracks going by.
Yes.
And there's like nothing you want to touch in that. And I remember in that moment, as I'm in the middle of the night in India on a train in the middle of nowhere, trying to figure out how to use the bathroom with the hole in the ground. It was, I had the realization, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Like, of all the places in the world, and of my whole life experience, how did I manage to end up on a train in the middle of the night in India, trying to find some decent place?
It's like, is this a dream?
I gave up Australia for this.
And it's just, that is, and I don't share that to scare people from going to India. I just share that as kind of that reality moment of, it's hard, but there's so much more good that comes out of it. And I think that that's what, each day into the